Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. A very warm welcome to the 2025 edition of the On the Move Cultural Mobility Forum that is co-organized this year in partnership with NDPC, the Northern Dimension Partnership on Culture. We are more than 100 people in this beautiful and inspiring Riga Cirque in Riga, and more than 300 people register for the online streaming that is provided by our member HowlRound. People are joining us from all over the world, and we thank them very much because, as you know, they are very different time zones. This two-day event would not be possible without the support of the European Union that we fully acknowledge here. My name is Marie Le Sourd, and I am the Secretary General of On the Move. Before the opening speeches, I would like to give you some key housekeeping rules. First of all, this event is taking place in Riga, but also online, as I mentioned. We will have, and I can already see them, we will try to facilitate this meeting and the exchange through online caption in English in this room, but also online, thanks to the National Captioning Institute. For people with visual impairment, we may ask all people that will speak today and tomorrow morning in Riga time. So all people that will speak during the session, including for you, the audience, if you have like question during the time of Q&A session, to introduce yourself visually. So for instance, for me, I would say that I am a 50-year-old woman of white complexion with dark brown medium-length hair, wearing a black top and a black dress. Panel discussion today and tomorrow will always include a Q&A session, both on-site and online. Do not hesitate to ask questions or make comments when the time comes. For the on-site interaction, it will be very important to use the microphone at all times to facilitate online streaming and the final recording of the forum, which will be then available on the Move YouTube channel. After this technical remark, and without further ado, I would like now to give the floor to the president of On the Move, Ms. Bojana Panevska, for an introductory remark. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie. Welcome, everyone, everyone that is here and everyone that is online. My name is Bojana Panevska. I'm a female human being of white complexion, plus size, gray hair, red lipstick. I will start with a big thank you note. First and foremost to our member here in Riga, NDPC, and the staff of NDPC who really helped enormously to organize this event. Dace Resele, Liene Abaronina, Cristina Lipina, Giulia Gotti, Cristina Virse, and Mara Skuja. I apologize for mispronunciation. I will probably continue mispronouncing a few more names because I have a list to thank. Enormous thank you to our host, Riga Circus, Mara Pavula, Martin Škibers, Katrina Duka, Odrija Kalve, and of course the technical support team. Our streaming partner and member, HowlRound, who is helping us to go online. Our press coverage, thanks to the Asia-Europe Foundation that supports the participation of the art journalist Miss Theodora Agni, and of course the support of the European Union. We live in, let's call them, transitional times. And there is a strong need for creating a new and tangible alternatives, and not only in the cultural sector, that will exist somewhere between idealism and realism, rather than becoming an illusion. As a way to contribute to some new forms of exchange, On the Move proposes on a yearly basis a cultural mobility forum to collectively investigate international artistic and cultural mobility trends. As a unique knowledge platform, the network works together with its members and partners to design thematic panel discussions and contextualize global mobility issues. This year, the forum's focus is on the international mobility of young and emerging arts workers. Why this topic? Because on moments, it seems the future is being cancelled by the leaders of the so-called free world. The technology has evolved rapidly, but how much have we evolved as human beings? We live in a dystopian fantasy where propaganda, entertainment, and education are overlapping and are integrated as one thing in many institutions, whether they are political, educational, or public. As bleak as it may sound, this situation also gives a lot of freedom to the next generation of arts workers, because they are free even more to create and to speak out loud and to fight for their rights and for the survival of this planet. And in that way, finding their own ways and creating a new narratives. We, the millennials, Gen X, boomers, need to give our support and tools for building a future where we can empower the new generations, since that will form a base from which humanity, and I guess AI and AGI, will have the possibility to challenge the power of the current leaders and billionaires that are ruling and their organized sadism. But let's come back to the forum. The need to support specifically the younger generation of arts workers in Europe is also acknowledged in the priorities of the current presidency of the Council of the European Union that is led by Poland till the end of June 2025. And this forum, which we are participating, it's not a standalone event, but it's a culmination of a series of publications and webinars developed on this subject since March this year. The Cultural Mobility Yearbook is highlighting trends about international cultural mobility patterns with a particular focus on young artists and cultural professionals. Also, the webinars that were held in March and April, where I would assume most of you took part either as speakers, rapporteurs, or as an active audience. The topic of this forum is crucial to discuss as we are referring to the future of international cultural mobility in today's challenged world, with some key questions in mind. How arts education, institutions, and cultural management programs or lifelong learning initiatives can integrate internationalization into their curricula. What are the motivations and the desire for the internationalization of the younger generation of arts workers today? To what extent the challenges they face are truly unique or mirror those experienced by other groups, more vulnerable ones operating from the perceived peripheries or from the edge? In order to tackle these questions, we are very grateful to our speakers, our moderators, and we will be joined with a team of what was supposed to be 6 young and emerging professionals from Latvia, Algeria, Wales, and Portugal, but unfortunately one of our rapporteurs, I'm sure you all read the news, was not able to arrive yesterday from Portugal because of obvious reasons, that what happened in Portugal and Spain. We are also very happy that On the Move members have never been so massively physically present in an event. We have almost 50 organizations and individuals that are represented today and tomorrow. So again, a big welcome to you all. And I'm concluding with another thank you as I started, but this time thank you to the On the Move team, Marie Lesueur, Bernardo Queiroz, Abdallah Balit, Claire Wilson, and of course, Johan Vlog. I'm trying to find them where they are. Here is Johan. Johan Vlog, who's of course, he's the main brain behind this forum and organization. Once again, be welcome. We have a lot of discuss, a lot of things are ahead of us, and I'm sure we will plant some ideas in your heads for future discussion or for continuing the fight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bojana. Now it's my great honor to give the floor to Ms. Lina Birsaka-Prikule, who is the head of the Minister's Office at the Ministry of Culture of Latvia, for introductory notes. Lina, please.
Hello, my name is Lina Birzaka. I am a 35-year-old woman of white complexion, ginger hair, and too formal suit for my inner feeling. Hello, dear participants. We are very happy that you are all here in Riga. Me, myself, I am also from the cultural sector, and I know how difficult it is to be a young professional to carve out a career path in culture. We must recognize for those working in this field that there are a wide variety of employment forms, and often people working in the cultural sector do not have regular employment or stable income. Social security systems usually do not take into account the specificity of their work. And it is also difficult to enter the labor market and build a permanent, strong position. The awareness of an uncertain future may make it difficult for young people to decide to take up a creative profession, although it should be remembered that we are talking about a significant group. We must acknowledge that in recent years the cultural sector has been affected by both the COVID-19 pandemic and the accompanying cultural digitalization. However, we in the Ministry of Culture support young cultural professionals, and it is extremely important during our daily work. At the beginning of this year, following Latvia's initiative, 27 EU member states signed a letter urging the new European Commission to continue supporting the cultural and creative sectors, as well as young professionals in the industry. And also, Northern Dimension Partnership of Culture also provides very important and necessary support mechanisms for young professionals. It promotes international cooperation between cultural organizations and professionals from the Nordic, Baltic, and Northeastern European countries. And for young cultural professionals, it means really a lot. The third point I would like to highlight is the accessibility of cultural education and career opportunities for society. It is important for us to ensure that in Latvia, higher education institutions are accessible to people with functional disabilities. Equally important it is for potential employers to follow this principle. Finally, culture is what strengthens the identity of any country or nation. And especially in today's circumstances, we as European countries need to have a clear vision that resources should be invested not only in defense needs, but also in our cultural sector. I really, really hope you will have a great discussion and talks and enjoy Riga. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lina, and I take the opportunity to thank also the Ministry of Culture for welcoming yesterday some member of On the Move for a strategic meeting for Mobility Funder. Thank you very much. Now it's my great pleasure to welcome, on stage, if I may say, my colleague Johan Flock, Director of Operation at On the Move, to introduce the forum and more particularly the first panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marie, and thank you all for these beautiful introductions. So my name is Johan. I'm going to self-describe very quickly. I'm a white man in my late 40s. I'm wearing a blue sweater, and I have blue reading glasses because I've reached that age. As you understood from our colleagues, we are going to start a forum that already started a few weeks ago. So you have the impression that we are just fresh and starting a new conversation about the international mobility of young and emerging artists, but that's not true. We started weeks ago already. And we started with what we called pre-forum webinars because we were frustrated of the small amount of conversation that we could have live here in Riga. So you will hear about them, and this is the beauty of our organizational perspective, I would say, for this forum, is that each of these pre-forum webinars had a rapporteur, young and emerging professional, and tomorrow all of them, except our wonderful Clara from Portugal, but all of them will come and share their main takeaways. So don't be frustrated by if you missed out these pre-forum webinars. Maybe I want to give a couple more practicalities on housekeeping. The first thing is if there is a fire or an emergency, please follow the staff of the Riga Cirques. You have exits everywhere for on-site participants, so don't get lost and follow the instructions. If you need a quiet space, we have that backstage, so also don't hesitate to ask us for guidance. I want maybe to tell you one thing about the dramaturgy of this event. As you understood when reading the programs, we really wanted to have a common big conversation, which means we are not going to split the participants online or on-site in different smaller groups. We really wanted to have all of you embarking on the same journey, listening to the same speakers and interacting with them. So I know this space is very grand, very beautiful. It's a beautiful circus space. We have a lot of seats, a big screen, so it might be intimidating, but that's not the purpose for you to be intimidating. We have we see one another, we are close to one another, and I hope that during this afternoon and tomorrow morning, you will feel comfortable to take the floor and to interact with the speakers during these 2 days. The first panel conversation will focus on the particular topic of how the internationalization of career is already an idea and a practice in arts institutions. How students and their teachers actually already have an understanding of the international context, relations and opportunities. And from this first panel, we will go into a second one fully dedicated to this transition between arts education or cultural management education into what they call the real world. The world of contracts, the world of moving sets, the world of accessing residencies in other countries. And we will then go to a third panel tomorrow where we investigate the bridges that can exist between the realities of young and emerging artists to the realities of other groups of our artistic and cultural community. So today I'm gonna just present very briefly Dea, because I trust, Dea, you will present not only the panel but also the panelists. So Dea, we've known each other for many years now, I have to say, even if you're very, very young, or younger than me. But we've met when you were the leader of Cultura Nova Foundation in Zagreb. And you are now a senior research assistant at the IRMO, the Institute for International Relations, and Institute for Development, and International Relations, also in Zagreb. You've been very active in European networks, from ELIA to ENCACT and other EU international projects. So I'm very happy that you will be moderating these discussions. But you will also, I would say, share the light with two colleagues and you will present them. I just want to make a note and say that with us we have Ikas Grajdanovic, who is our rapporteur. So Ikaz will be listening to the conversation, just like you, and she will be taking notes like crazy. And tomorrow, she will share her takeaways. And I'm looking forward to that. So thank you for agreeing to this very particular job. Dea, Paolo, Aparajita, please come.
Can you hear me? Perfect. So please join me. First I have to share some, let's say, visualization of myself. So I'm a white woman in the best ages, around 50. I'm a woman in a green-black with the black hair and with the glass, not for reading, then for seeing all of you. So this is from my side, from the beginning, and I will ask also my dear panelists to do the same things. So maybe Paolo, starting with you.
Yeah, hello everyone. I'm Paolo. I'm 43, white man with a lot of hair in my body, starting from the head to the face. And I also have glasses, and I'm feeling like Johan, that from time to time I have to take them out because I started not to read from close enough.
Perfect. And over to you, Aparajita.
I'm Aparajita. I have salt and pepper hair. I'm in my 50s.
The best ages, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so good afternoon. Yeah, and welcome all of you who are here with us in this beautiful venue in Riga, but also everyone who joining us online. It is my really true pleasure to be moderator of this first panel of Cultural Mobility Forum 2025. And of course, thanks to organizer for kind invitation and opportunity to being part of this year edition of the forum. So as Johan already mentioned, our panel today invite us to reflect how arts education institution, cultural management programs, as well as a lifelong learning initiative can and should prepare young artists and the cultural professionals for the complex reality of international engagement today. We meet in a moment when international mobility of artists and cultural professionals, including young generation, is being fundamentally questioned and redefined. So after shock of pandemic, the numbers of war and conflicts, geopolitical tension, the climate breakdowns, digital shift, persistent inequalities and the chronic inequalities, as well as the geographical disparities. So all of that basically challenge us to ask, what does it mean, mobility and internationalization today, and specifically access to these practices, isn't it? So it is basically clear that preparing young people for the global stage requires much more than just providing exchange program. So what is needed is a basically paradigm shift. So from mobility as a movement to mobility as a care, to mobility as a belonging, and the mobility as a mutual learning. And this means basically fostering mindset, skills, also supporting system, and critical awareness. Not only for those who travel, then also for those who are in a position of host, who co-create, who engage, but also for those who provide the support, and also for those who created the framework. So basically for everyone who participate in the whole circle of mobility. So it's basically, it calls for rethinking internationalization as a shared responsibility, rooted in sustainability, reciprocity, and a meaningful connection. So to explore these questions, I'm joined by two remarkable experts whose work directly address some of these questions from different perspectives, different engagement, and different experiences. So today on the stage, I'm joined by Aparajita Dutta. Aparajita is the head of international affairs at the University of Arts The Hague in the Netherlands. She has worked in the field of internationalization since 1999 with a deep commitment to exploring how internationalization and the quality of arts education intersect. Over the years, Aparajita has initiated and led several platforms and working groups, including within Cumulus Associations and ELIA, focusing on international strategy in fine arts and design education. And she is currently pursuing her PhD at Leiden University on internationalization in a higher education for the arts. So talking about the topic of this panel, we can't have the best person with us. Thank you, Aparajita, for joining.
Thank you for having me.
And another expert is Paolo Montemurro. Paolo is the founder of Materahub in Italy, an organization dedicated to supporting the cultural and creative sector through capacity building, policy development, and the creation of collaborative ecosystem. And he has led numerous youth-funded initiatives focused on creative entrepreneurship, internationalization, and cross-sector innovation. Paolo also coordinated the Creative Business Cup in Italy and has advised various Italian region and Eastern Partnership countries on cultural and creative industry development. Today, Materahub is a founding member of EIT KIT, Culture and Creativity, positioning Paolo at the heart of international networking and innovation efforts in the sector. Welcome, Paolo, as well to the stage, and thank you both for being with us today. So, in this conversation, we will not focus primarily on the importance of mobility and the kind of mobility we want to foster. We will go somehow beyond the scene, let's say, exploring the questions, how do we equip emerging artists and the cultural professionals to navigate international pathways, balancing between the creative development, entrepreneurial skills, but mental health as well, and also climate responsibility. We will also do the best to explore, do we ensure the internationalization does not reproduce existing inequalities, but instead create a space for true exchange and true care. So to explore these questions, we will explore, let's say, through different key topics or key perspectives, and I will invite speakers to share their complementary perspectives and point of view on a series of questions on each of these specific approaches. But you are also invited to join us. After each circle of questions, we will open the stage and the floor for your questions, your comments, your experiences, your stories. Both you who are here with us in Riga and also you who are joining us and following us online. So please be free to share your comments and questions in a chat through the conversation, and we will do our best to bring your questions and comments to the floor. So finally, let's start with the conversation after this short intro. So internationalization is often discussed on, let's say, this international or institutional level. But behind this system are individual journeys and stories of how people enter the international arena and international scene, often with a mix of ambition, chance, and supporting system, or lack of it, isn't it? So, Aparajita, I would like to begin with you and to bring your personal experience to the floor and to stage. So when you think back to your early steps and early, let's say, years into the field of internationalization, what helped you to navigate that space, and what challenges did you encounter?
Well, I have to go back a long time.
No, at all.
Well, I grew up in India. So, and when you grow up in India and you are going there and, to a certain school and a certain college, you are geared to be the best, and you are also geared to achieve, because it's a performance society. So I think when I was 13, I already started looking into schools and colleges in the States. That's also part of India, that most of the people go either to the United States or they go to the United Kingdoms, and then you prepare yourselves for TOEFL, to what's it called, GSAT and stuff like that. So yes, that's when I started. So when I was finishing high school, I was also parallel studying to get those exams. And that was also because of my family, where most of the my brother and most of the family members, they had already left for the United States. So it was kind of a drive that I cannot be left behind, because if I'm left behind, then I haven't achieved enough. But then when I finished my master's, I was like, I got the opportunity to go to Japan. So instead of going to the States, I took the leap into going to a country where, of course, the language was super different. The customs are super different. But I think that was the adventurous side of my father, who always traveled a lot within India. So I went to Japan and I learned the language to a certain extent that I can hold like the normal conversation to some extent. And I was teaching English to earn money, and I was doing ceramics. So that was like 4 years, but then I got tired of doing that, and I thought that, do I want to live the rest of my life? I was still in my 20s. Do I want to go on teaching English and doing ceramics? And no. So then, of course, what do you do if you have family in the States? That's the easy way of, again, trying to apply for the States. And I did get accepted to the State University of San Francisco to study international relations. But then there came an opportunity to go to the Netherlands and study law. So I was like, okay, States, yes, I already visited twice. Let's go and take a leap into the adventure, go to the Netherlands. So that's how I ended up coming to the Netherlands. I did not study law. I studied international relations and went into education. And then I've been working for the art institution for the last 13 years. And I think that part of adventure has always been the thread in my life. So learning a new language and learning how to adjust yourself to a new situation. So yeah, that was my international
So you basically start with the international let's say, experience before you enter to the field of arts and culture, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I've always done something with art, but not as a professional. So I've always been interested. When I was growing up in India, from the age of 5, I've been going to classical singing classes. So I can play the harmonium and I can sing in the language there. So yes, of course. I mean, I think I had the privilege of being brought up in an international mindset, which actually helped to take the steps because now in my work as head of internationals, I do see a lot of students and also teachers who live in the Netherlands, have went to the Dutch universities, have been brought up in that, and are now in contact with international environment. Of course, it's their first. For many students also, when they are coming, it's their first. So that's a huge leap. And for me, it was, of course, going to a country like Japan where we basically don't know anything, and the culture is indeed super, super different. And I'm not quite sure how many of you have the experience of working in Japan. I mean, I don't miss that at all, because if your boss calls you on Sunday morning and says, hey, you need to come to the office, you just cannot say no. You just go to the office.
You're already there, basically.
Yes. I mean, it happened to me many, many times. And I just used to say, because where I lived and going to Tokyo took about 40 minutes. So I would say, please give me 45 minutes. And I'm there. So I don't miss that. But of course, then you get used to how it is, and you have to adapt. So I think internationalization is also teaching you how to go about with the things that you encounter every day, little things. How many degrees do you need to bow when I'm talking to you, or when I'm talking to my superior, when I'm talking to the president? I mean, these are little things, but you have to learn how to go about that. So yes.
So let's explore, Paolo, on your side, how it was your first step. Were there any networks, different opportunities, mentors? What's happened on your entering the international work?
Yeah. So it happened by chance. And we are going back in time in the 1998. You have to imagine that, of course, all the information that we can get today about mobility opportunities at that time, with no internet, it was very hard. But there were some places like youth organizations that were promoting youth exchanges that existed already at that time, because Europe has always been promoting mobility as its most working pillar, I would say. So in 1998, it happened by chance. I was invited to join a group going to Poland for a youth exchange. And I realized that it was something that I really liked, also because it was a way to a little bit overcome the limitation that I had by living in the deep south of Italy, that had its own limitation, still has a limitation. So for me, the possibility to go on international mobilities has always been the possibility to explore things that were not provided where I was living my everyday life. And I have to admit that, of course, I was lucky because as it has been said, you need to have someone who is opening you the doors for mobilities, or a family context where they are pushing you to go and explore the world. So that was the case, and I started to do that, and I realized that I wanted to have a career in this international dimension. I was a little bit too ambitious. I wanted to be a diplomat for my studies, realizing after the university that it's quite complex to become a diplomat, at least in Italy.
So from diplomacy to culture. Okay, but there is
We
a
are
lot
going
of
there.
connection.
We are going there.
Okay.
So I had, of course, the chance to do my Erasmus at university time, and actually I went to the Netherlands as well. I went to Leiden, where Aparajita is living. And to me, that was a very important moment because it was, well, first of all, an opportunity to open up my. I was almost at the end of my studies, so it was for the final thesis, and it was an opportunity to do a little bit of research in areas that were not provided where I was studying. But it was, of course, the exposure to a community of international students, not only Europeans, but very much international and global students, because the masters there and the research path were open for students coming from all over the world. After that, I thought, okay, I think that even though I'm not getting a diplomat, there is an opportunity to explore what I really liked about this exposure to European dimension, European cooperation. And I discovered that actually there was a job, or at least a profession, for those who were creating these kind of cooperation opportunities. That is then the work that I'm still doing. I started to do it in fields that were not related to culture. They were more related to cooperation for development. And the funny thing of the story is that my mobility started to leave Matera and ended up going back to Matera to do the things that I'm doing in the city where I was born. This is a little bit of a lesson to say that, of course, internationalization can start really wherever there is this interest in opening up the local context to international dimension. And from 2011, we have started this adventure with Materahub, where we focused on the creative and cultural sector in particular, because the city started the path to become European Capital of Culture in 2019. The European Commission was publishing the first paper about the importance of the creative and cultural sector on the overall economy and on the employment statistic. So creative sector started to be visible from that perspective, also for not only for the European Commission, but for other players. So we immediately understood that internationalization was the first part that we could offer to the creative and cultural professional of our region. And again, we were a little bit lucky because the condition around us favored this process of really making everyone understand the importance of cooperating at international level, going and seeing how others were doing their things, coming back home with better experiences. And of course, this was true for the professional. It's even more important for those who are starting, so for emerging professionals and emerging and students in the arts and cultural sector.
Okay, thank you. Before we continue with exploring basically what does it mean preparing students today, I want to check, is there any emerging questions, comments, online, offline? If not, we can continue in our conversation. Yeah? Okay, there is no hand in the air. So I would say that a traditional focus on sending students abroad is not sufficient anymore, isn't it? So the question is how we equip students for international engagement as a mindset, not only as a physical movement from point A to point B. Yeah. So Aparajita, questions for you. How are you seeing art education programs adapt to this broader view of internationalization? Are there examples of how institutions are embedding their skills and the values in the curricula? So basically the question is how arts education institutions change over the time and adapt to this new needs and landscape of internationalization of students. So over to you.
Yes, well, I can use my institution as an example. The University of the Arts, it's built of two academies. It's the Royal Conservatoire and the Royal Academy of the Arts in The Hague. Royal Conservatoire was always international because the whole subject of performing arts is international. So it's been international for many ages. So if I go back to the Royal Academy of the Arts and take that as a specific example, say in 2011-12, it was 80% Dutch students. There was probably only one program that was being taught in English. Everything was taught in Dutch. But in 2013, there was this change where for the whole university, internationalization became very important. Internationalization in art education became important. And in 2013, there was a conscious choice made for the whole university that all programs will be taught in English and all curriculum will be provided in English, and we need a body, a mass of students, international students, in order to facilitate internationalization. So in 2013, the first strategy was written on this. We said, okay, in 5 years, from 20% international, we will move up to 45% international, 55 still will be Dutch. But in 2 years' time, 2015, it was 70% international and only 30% Dutch. So the tables kind of turned very quickly. But it was the importance of internationalization that helped do this, because we are trying to have a holistic internationalization. It's an intentional process or an integrated process which includes professionalization of staff, because without professionalization of staff, you cannot have internationalization of curriculum, because it's all connected. So if you look at internationalization, say in the center, and then everything around it, so you have staff, you have students, you have HR, you have facilities, you have marketing. I'm probably missing out one or two, but everything is connected to internationalization. And then, of course, the next steps comes to that there are many facets of internationalization. Mobility is one of them. But what is the content of the mobility? Because sending students abroad is just one thing, but you want to give them more, and you want to learn from them, because that's what we say. It's a learning community. It's not a teaching community, because at least I make it very, very clear to also all staff going abroad that yes, you are going abroad for your own improvement, to develop yourself, but you are bringing back also something within to the institution. So that's also the same for the Royal Conservatoire. When they are going out, they have to write a motivation very specifically saying that whatever they learn, how are they going to use that in their teaching? So that's a part. When students are going abroad, they are asked when they are coming back that what did you learn and how are you going to implement that in the rest of your studies? Because for us, usually students go out in the third year because we have a 4-year study. For design departments, internship is mandatory. So, and a big number of students choose to go abroad. And the funny thing is, because you would think that because we have a huge number of international students, mobility will be very small because, of course, mobility is degree mobility. The students are coming to us for their degree, but most of the foreign students want to go abroad to another European city because they are like, we want to learn from Riga or Vilnius or so.
We will explore later,
Yes,
is it a trend or really necessity? So it would be really interesting to look deeper at that point. But now I wanted also ask Paolo to share your thoughts, because you work a lot with young creatives across Europe, basically. So what do you think, what is their main skills and the capacity that they need for building meaningful internationalization and international relation?
I think there is one preliminary very important skills that is about spotting the right opportunity for mobility. Because compared to the 1998 today, Europe is Europe and not only Europe, because of course, yesterday we saw the presentation of the mobility scheme in specific regions around Europe. Mobility is now recognized as a strong asset of different programs, educational programs, cultural programs, entrepreneurial programs. So the first thing is really to be able to understand what kind of mobility you need for the moment of your career where you are, for the specific time in your professional development where you are. And what we are trying to do is to really help them understanding what they need especially. The other point is to really being able to build a process that is not only focused on what happens when you are abroad, but it's very much focused on understanding exactly as it is happening for the university. So what you are bringing back, and now those things will really have an impact when you are back home or wherever you are developing your work or your professional development. Because sometimes mobilities can create a lot of frustration in the people that are in mobility, because you are going in another place, you are exposed to incredible things, incredible practices, and you need to be made aware or become aware that not all the things that you are seeing can be brought home and used home as you see in other contexts. So we are also trying to really understand how to make sure that the mobility is not becoming then something permanent, because people like so much what they see in other part of Europe or the world that they are saying, okay, I'm staying here because this is the place. Of course, I mean, the whole concept of Europe is based also on this possibility. We cannot stop that, but we have really to try and foster the mobility as something that could also bring benefit for those who are not moving. So there is a little bit of a responsibility also in those who are participating in the program that we support, and it's really to try and first of all represent the community where they are based into the new dimension where they are going, bringing there, not just being exposed to what is there, but also bringing the heritage, the knowledge that they have in their own community. And then being able to really understand how those practices can become something concrete locally. We also try to really much, because the mobility program that we are promoting and facilitating are based on, the scheme is mostly a mentoring scheme. The other important thing is to recognize the right host organization, and this is working also the other way around. So where we are training organization to become good host for the mobility of someone coming to the south of Italy from other part of Europe. And that's really important because, of course, there are expectations involved, there are lessons to be learned, and there are contributions to the projects of other organizations. So it's never just a learning mobility, but it's really to have the opportunity to have an impact also on the work that others are implementing in their own organization. And I think that really this is a really important thing to highlight, because we have been, of course, there is a phase in the life of people where you find very interesting the idea of spending a year somewhere else as part of your life. But when you are focused on action that needs to have an impact on your professional development, then of course that becomes something more seriously to be structured in a more serious way, considering really what you want to achieve. Again, I think that the opportunities are so wide today that it's only a matter of understanding the right one for the stage where you are and what you want to achieve.
We will come back to this aspect of the role of host, but before that, and also in line what you mentioned last, and when I basically break Aparajita earlier, talking about the fact that mobility today is really inherent to arts and cultural field, isn't it? And obviously also for the young artists, cultural professionals and students as well. And you mentioned, that there is more and more interest also for the foreigner students who visiting your institutions to travel and participate in different mobility. And I ask, is it a necessity or just a trend? So can you continue in this line and explore further what is the basically frame in which we operate today, and why students also want to participate in moving around?
Well, I don't think it's a trend. I think it's a necessity, because also, like in part of the research that I'm doing, even when I interviewed a lot of people, and they say, yes, there is this aspect of local, national, and international. But then if you just ask a little bit more, that yes, of course, as an artist, or you can be very local, but is it really local? So that is the question we are all asking, because you might say that, yes, I'm based in Riga and I'm producing my art in Riga, but me as a tourist, if I'm coming and if I'm watching that, then it is becoming international immediately. So, and I think it's a necessity for both students, teachers, and not to forget supporting staff, because they are also a big part of the institutions. Internationalization is important because the most important part of internationalization is to learn or have this idea of understand, not have the idea, but understand the intercultural dimension of everything what we are doing, and the international perspective of it also, because the world is changing so much, and it's changing rapidly even as we speak. as we are sitting here and talking with each other. So our future generation, and also all the artists who are working, I mean also like Paolo who is supporting them, they have to know what is the intercultural dimension, because if you do not understand that, then you will never be able to perform in a situation or in whatever situation, because what we are also saying is that artists, designers, performing artists, they might think, like our students, they might think, yes, I'm in the bubble of that for the coming 4 years, but they are not, because they, through their art, they are making a statement, or they are taking a statement, and if they are doing that, then they have to understand how it is being seen by someone else, or how is it being perceived by someone else. And I think degree mobility or mobility as exchange opens up that window to see me coming from India, going to Japan, coming to the Netherlands. Yes, I had to open up to all those.
It is essential.
It is essential.
Yeah. Is there maybe any interest, please? We need a mic for you. So where is the mic? Just a second.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Milica Ilic. I have a very simple question for Aparajita, and it's, you mentioned that in 2013 this decision was made to switch, to radical internationalization, and I just wonder what initiated, what motivated this this decision, and I also wonder if you could connect it to today's context and how a decision like that resonates today, and is the perspective still the same from the kind of broader, maybe national ecosystem, arts or educational ecosystem? Would a decision like that still be possible and wanted? How are things today as compared to 2013?
Or to add, do you need to change your decision in those days?
Definitely not. I wouldn't change any decision that's been made. Well, basically, I was brought into the school to make it international. So I played a role in helping the higher management, because I'm middle management, the higher management, to go along with me and take that decision to be international, because I personally believe that you cannot not be international and work in the art sector, art higher education sector. So just last November, I'm rewriting the strategy, and in between there was a strategy in 2019, and internationalization is the most important and will be the most important, because if you see also, if we do not equip our students to deal with the things that are happening in the world today, if you just stay very nationalistic, then I don't know where we will be heading, if I understood your question.
Just a second for the mic, because of
yeah, sorry, I wasn't clear enough in my question. I realize that now. My question wasn't to you. Of course, I obviously understand your own personal motivation in this, and I fully adhere to it. My question was, what drove a Dutch university to make that decision? And would that decision be still made by a Dutch university or the Dutch educational and arts ecosystem? Is this kind of decision still possible? If not, why not? And if it is, then what is the context in which we are evolving today in this respect?
Yes, I think that if you take my institution, if we were to redo it, the same decision will be made. that internationalization is important. And as I said, it's not only my personal drive, but everyone within the institution believes that art cannot be practiced without internationalization, without having that international knowledge, without having that intercultural dimension and the international perspective in your work, what you're doing, how you are learning, and how you're teaching. So yes, the same will be done. And I think it's also important to fight the nationalism which is coming up, also in the Netherlands. You know, they are making a law to curb internationalization.
Okay, I see, oh my God, 3, 4. Okay, let's take all of this, because idea is to create the conversation and really to broke this line between us and you, and the only way to do that, it's really to engage. Thank you for that. I see one hand there, one here, another here, and 2 here. Oh my God. Let's try to keep the order. Over to you in the first line.
Shall I start? Okay. My name is Ruth Jacobi, and I would like to follow up. Coming from the music sector, I very well understand your question, and I think in music we have heard for many, many years already, oh my God, 80% of the students in European conservatoires, part of the Royal Academy, are from outside Europe, and this is seen as a danger. I mean, there are so I'm very happy that you say this decision would be taken again, but I personally have heard many times, oh, we need to have quota for our own European students, or, you know, this kind of speech, which I think is very frightening. So that's one observation. And another one is that you have been talking about degree mobility. I like that expression very much. It's the first time I hear it, but I think it's a very good expression. I think at least in music, but maybe also in other art forms, I don't know, there's also a star mobility. You want to teach with a specific professor, a specific artist. That's why you choose a certain conservatoire, and then mostly stay there. So it's not so much really an interest in the culture, in the country, in the society that you travel to, but really you want to teach with this one idol. Maybe you can reflect on that or others.
Yeah, conservatoire, I mean, I can only give the examples of the conservatoires that we are working with. For the Royal Conservatoire, we are now taking part in the European University Alliance with 8 other conservatoires. So for us, it's not necessarily that 80% are from outside Europe. I would say it's the other way around. It's mostly European, a little bit of Dutch, and a little bit of non-European. So from the Netherlands perspective, non-European students are not funded by the government. So for us, if we were to have, say, 80% non-European students, that would not be super good financially, because at the end of the day, education is also business. I mean, people don't like me saying that, but that's the fact of life. So we do have, we do see who, at least for Royal Conservatoire, it is, of course, the excellent students coming in, and specifically also for the big names that are connected with the conservatoire. So we kind of have, say, 20% non-EU students. They are paying a much, much higher tuition fee than the European and the Dutch. I think it will stay like that. And the mobility, degree mobility is an international concept in the internationalization literature. So that's basically when students move from one country to the other to get the degree from that place. So, and that will also continue, because the world is becoming smaller and smaller. It's more connected, and I think digitalization has a big role in that. So Like our marketing takes place mostly on Instagram. We do not have any paper marketing
Anymore, isn't
anymore.
it?
So it's websites. And
Okay, so are you satisfied with these reflections? So let's pick up other. I saw in the third row over there, isn't it? Do you change your mind? Okay. And then I will come here.
I didn't change my mind yet.
Yet.
I understand the context of a lot of the mobility that you're talking about here, and I think that's obviously speaking structurally about how we can support that. It makes a lot of sense. I think back to the international mobility decisions that I made as a young person. A lot of the people I know, they were kind of deeply irresponsible and risky. And I see people of my son's generation not willing to take those professional risks in their early 20s because their perception is that there is a sort of codified direction that their career should take, and for a number of reasons of privilege that we had some years ago that is not available now because of economic differences, they're not willing to take those risks. And I'm wondering if that's, when you're working with students who are traveling internationally, is that sense of making international decisions to pursue your cultural career internationally, does that run counter to an impulse to take a safer route with their careers?
I would pose the same questions to both. So do you also see some, let's say, differences with the younger generation that is coming to the field of arts and culture with a different kind of the mindset when it comes to the mobility?
I think it depends very much from the country, country to country, because if I think at Italy, of course, there is a natural tendency towards mobility because of the lack of opportunities to follow a right path locally or nationally. Of course, I can speak from our experience. We are promoting a mobility that is deeply connected with the topic of developing an entrepreneurial path, even in arts and culture. Of course, the risk-taking is one of the competencies that we want to be tested, and we are looking there. So the people are participating because, and they are fully aware that they are going into a journey that is an investment, a self-investment, investment of their time, but they consider it rewarding. Then, of course, I think that it's right because there were also less instrument in the past to really have a complete focus and analysis of this balance between one option or the other. So I think that's a little bit.
Jane, Aparajita, maybe you can add from your perspective.
Yes, I see a lot of students who are coming to us who are taking the risk, who are leaving their countries because of their situation, or leaving their families because they are not being supported by their families the way they are, or sometimes it comes down to specifics of what gender they want to be, just be themselves, and that is not possible where they are living or the family they are in. So they are taking a risk in that way. They are coming. But I do want to mention something, that art education, in that way, you have to, it's a very exclusive education, because we get for both the faculties together, we probably get, say, 4,000 applications. And then for the Royal Academy, we are only taking in 300 students from 2,000 applications. And at the Royal Conservatoire, we are taking on also 250, 300. So it's a very small group who is coming in from this huge application that's coming in. So, probably loads of other students who would love to take the risk and come. And there is also a difference, as my colleague said, that the conservatoire students, they know that I want to be the best violin player in the world. So I mean, like 24/7, they are playing violin. But if you look at the other side of the non-performing arts, yes, I think most of our students, or I would say a small group of our students, at least in the bachelor's, the master's is a different situation, and the PhDs are a different situation, but the bachelor's, they don't know what their future is or how they want to go ahead. There is a small group who is super good, and they are already entrepreneurs. Like already, we have some students, they have started a business when they are in the second year of their studies, so they know where they are going.
Yeah, I will come back to this displacement and artists at risk and to explore a little bit the point of host and institutions and what is possible to offer to them. But before that, I remember that I think we had 3 hands rise here. So please, Mary, over to you.
Thank you, Marianne Divlik. I feel that some of us are going a little bit in the same direction, which means getting deeper into the nitty-gritty of the subject. And as some people will know, in the European contemporary performing arts scene, all this international exchange and networking was starting in the late 80s. And we were using some of the same rationales, curiosity about the human condition, how do other people perceive things, how do other people feel things, even economic, although we would not have used that term. Can my performing arts company get booked in another country? That then became international co-productions. And my question, I think it's following a little bit on Milica and Matthew. What's the difference now than 35 years ago? Are the rationales the same? Is it the fact that there's much more competition because indeed there are more possibilities, programs, scholarships, what have you? Is it that people are looking to the international level because they feel that their own generation's possibilities are becoming so constrained? I almost want to ask you for case studies. I'm really looking at what happened in 35 years. Is it different? How? It must be.
It's definitely. So is there any response and the reflections of these changes from our time, let's say, during the 90s, and opportunities that we had, for example, my generation coming from the Eastern Europe, and what we have now as an opportunity? What's changed? The policy, the instruments, the mindset, the skills, the needs, what you can recognize through your work over years?
I think there are 2 things to it. So one is the institutional motivation. So if you look into the 4 motivations to internationalize for an institution, that's political, economics, academic, and social cultural. So there is a paradigm shift in that, because if you look at in the 1990s, the beginning of 1990s, the Anglo-Saxon world, so United States, Australia, Ireland, the UK, they were international, institutions were internationalizing because of the economic gains. Foreign students coming, huge amount of money. It hasn't disappeared, it's still there, but the shift, there is a huge shift now from the institutional perspective to internationalize, and that is the socio-cultural and the academic have become more important. So there you do see a shift in that. So I mean, today you just walk into any one of the Dutch higher institutions and they'll say, why are you international? Yes, because of the social contribution, because of the socio-cultural. But then there is this other side, especially for arts, is that if you ask them, okay, make explicit what your social contribution is, then it kind of becomes a little bit difficult. There can be few examples, but not as such. For students, I think that's the impression I have, is that they want to explore the world. Because, and as I said, the reason also that some of them come to our schools who do not have the money. You know, they work and they pay, even European students, but they want a broader world vision. So in that respect, internationalization or globalization has become important, and we cannot do without it. So I think probably that is the gist. Although I cannot say how it was 35 years ago.
Paolo,
Yeah,
maybe
me neither.
you can try.
But no, I think that there is an interesting thing to mention, and it is that we have seen that with, of course, students not in higher education but in vocational training, for example, and young professional, and is that we have noticed that the European dimension is given for granted. So in my time, you were waiting for Erasmus to have the first opportunity to go in Europe, and now almost all the people we are working with, they already know that if they want, they can start their educational path in the Netherlands, in France, in Germany, giving that as a starting point. So they are aware that there are opportunities for them to study in other countries, to professionalize in other countries. And so the level has moved from European to global. For example, making a very concrete reference to this program about supporting young entrepreneurs in the creative sector, we now have the possibility to open the program to US, Canada, South Korea, Singapore, because the program had to compete with other initiatives that were already on this global dimension, and because there was a request for something far from the European dimension, that we are still keeping our diversity, but it's a little bit as if we are more or less creating a common ground where, again, you can stay in Italy or you can go in France, and that things will not change that much in how you develop your professional career, or at least the opportunity that you have.
Just a second for a mic.
Sorry, I wanted to quickly add for our international audience, because you are mentioning European, but what you are meaning is EU-based.
Not only.
No, but I think very often for a lot of these exchanges for students, like somebody from Serbia, it's not so easy to come to study in France and Italy as somebody based in the EU. So I think most of people here that are from Europe, it's clear. But if we have some more international
You think
audience,
European Union here?
Yes, exactly. I think we should distinguish when we talk European and EU-based.
For example, for these Erasmus for young entrepreneurs, it's not only EU27, but it's all the countries participating in the program. Plus, if you are non-EU national, but you are in EU, in one of the countries that are eligible, you can participate.
But based in the EU are the keywords.
Of course, yeah,
because
based in
like
the EU.
European is, there are other countries also. Yeah. I mean, I just wanted to make it clear because I heard it a few times.
No, but European is okay, because like students coming from Sarajevo or Albania, they can all take part in Erasmus.
I mean,
it's European, it's not
less from the UK, I think. And not
from the UK also.
But for studying, it's a different, because the tuition fee is different in the Netherlands for people from students based in EU and a student coming from UK or Serbia and so on.
Yes, that's true.
That's what I wanted. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Do you want to end with your thoughts if you are still in a line? Sorry for this interruption, but it was
no. So I really think that
to clarify.
this is interesting, and I also want to generally reflect on something that doesn't have to do specifically with mobility for development of professional development, but again, going back to myself in '98. For me, it was at that time. It was very hard to travel, unless, of course, you were part of a wealthy family. Today, you know, it's so easy to go everywhere in Europe that the
I'm Europe, in European Union.
In European Union, yeah. I don't know, in Europe as well.
In Europe as well.
Low-cost companies are flying also to Turkey or. That and I see that also in my job. For me, it was so important to have the mobility as part of my job. Today, with the people that are joining our team, mobility is not something that they are looking for in the job that they are doing, because it's so easy for everyone to travel.
Yeah,
that you know, that's not really a plus anymore as it was
10
15,
years ago. 20 years ago. Before again I grab some questions and comments from you, I have you on my mind. I wanted to be a little bit of diva of this conversation, because somehow we are really supportive to this internationalization, but I'm really interesting to hear what is the consequence of this, let's say, obsession and imperative of internationalization that becomes so inherent and intrinsic, and the part also of the arts education institutions when it comes to the questions of access. Because you mentioned at one point the competition, and we want the best of the best, but what it's coming when it comes, you know, to others and to their access to arts education, and at the end also to their access to internationalization, if they have like a limited access because of the huge competition. There is a more and more interest and less seats. So what is the consequences?
Well,
do you see already some let's say negative effects or?
Well, that is something. It's quite a difficult question that you've now asked. No problem. But then, of course, I think the whole system needs to change. How art education is built up, because I remember that Elia, I probably you know Elia, this is the European League of Institute of Arts, and I'm a board member of there, and I'm also chairing the platform internationalization, Elia, and I think a few years ago they were holding this leadership symposium in Poznan, and this was one of their topics. How do you make art education accessible to everyone? But then, of course, you have all these presidents and rectors sitting there, and then when you ask them that, okay, but you want the best students coming in, so how isn't that a contradictory in terms that in the one end you're saying we want the excellent and the best students who come in, and on the other hand you're saying yes, we need to make art higher education accessible to everyone. So that's not possible. So it means a huge system change has to happen, and if I may be very honest, I don't think that system change happening in the coming 10 years, because it is in that way an exclusive education, and it will remain an exclusive education. I think it's also kind of fulfilling the prophecy that artists see. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So see themselves also exclusive in that respect. So,
so that's
that
also
would,
bring us to the questions of culture with a big C and elitism in the whole cultural fields and arts, but not open this Pandora box. Maybe Paolo, you also want to add something to this, and then we finally come to you.
No, yeah, of course, outside the formal education, both in continuous professional development and in non-formal education, there is there is a selection, of course, but there is probably more openness for everyone to participate. I have to say that in the mobility program, the accessibility and the criteria for participation are still keeping not accessible the program for young professionals and creators that might have some less support from let's say families or whoever can support them to participate in the program. But this is going to be like the economic support provided by the programs is growing more and more. And in terms of accessibility, there are things that are taken into consideration more and more in programs, in mobility programs, in order to allow the participation to everyone. So in the Erasmus for Young Entrepreneurs, there are extra grants that are issued for those who are coming with special needs in the program. For now, of course, the Commission is looking at that only from a mobility perspective. But we are opening a conversation about understanding what it means to make a mobility program really accessible. So what are the area of accessibility that needs to be taken into consideration? So it's an ongoing process, and I see that it's becoming more and more clear how this can be structured. Again, I think that there is a need, the first level of accessibility is the need of spreading information about the opportunities. Because it's of course easier for just the individual to find these opportunities, but really bringing these opportunities where people are less exposed to initiatives and events or organizations that are already acting to promote these opportunities, that is a little bit the main challenge, I think.
But at the same time, I would say that there is a more flexibility in this lifelong learning
Definitely,
and
yes.
capacity building development for everyone who already entered to the scene. Short, and because we have
or we can come back.
people.
I just would like to mention also a disadvantage of internationalization. So, but maybe we can go.
Yes, please.
Thank
you for waiting.
No problem. Hello, I'm Julia. I have to go back because now already new things were said. Just a little comment to the system change. All four, I agree. But also not to forget, well, in the reality that won't change fast or not now. Maybe there's already something about like the transparency of criteria, and this exclusivity can be very much opened up in a different way without having to change all the system, because we have to deal with what we have also. As a comment. I wanted to ask, because there was a lot said about like the young people taking risks to come to other countries to study, and that there's this, you know, added value to the universities to have like intercultural exchange and new students and new perspectives from other, from people with other backgrounds. But what is the risk and the responsibility of the universities in the sense of like, what do you provide for them, welcoming them in countries where they have no family, no understanding of the language, of the culture? That's one. And the other thing was that I had a conversation with somebody that is teaching also in Amsterdam, where they do a whole trajectory about, you know, changing the system from within and really thinking differently about arts and the arts market and how to work with the students to like a new and more
fair, inclusive art field, but also they have a huge amount of international students coming to the Netherlands because they think about this kind of success trajectory. I come to Amsterdam and then I will be following the footsteps of whatever this and this company or this dancer or this artist, and that there was like a situation of almost mourning the fact that now all of a sudden they find themselves in an institution that wants, from a good perspective, change this narrative of the single artist, of the success is to be having a huge international touring and all these kind of things. But there are also students that maybe leave their country or leave their context to come somewhere where this is still possible. So what do you do with this gap between the kind of more privileged position, Western European, to say, okay, we can do it all different, we don't need to internationalize, we don't need to have international touring because we are all want to be more local and more ecological and responsible. But this in like vis-a-vis also the international students that come that maybe look for this to, you know, to start their careers.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was clear.
Thank you for leading us or bringing us back also to these questions about the role of the host institution. Because the process of mobility is not only related to someone who lived and also to someone who received. So what is already done or what is needed to be done to improve the host institutions and to create this stay at the destination as a meaningful experience for everyone who come, and specifically for the students or artists, young creatives who are at risk or displacement artists. So it's a question basically for both of you. So maybe we can start with who wants?
I can start if you like. It's a very good point, and the program that we are running is basically a peer-to-peer program. So the mobility is not only, of course, the value of mobility is for those who are traveling, but the hosting organization, which is in this case a cultural professional or a creative entrepreneur, is already part with the same rights and the same involvement in the program. So as a host organization, of course, they are called to bring their experience because it is the cooperation is happening between the young creator and someone who has more experience in the same sector, provided experience. But still, we are looking at the benefit for this exchange for the host organization. We are looking on how the internationalization process is not only for those who are traveling, but also for those who are opening the door of their organization, of their work, their practice, to someone coming from another country, so someone coming from a different background and all the things that we were saying before. And at the same time, also opening its practice to the innovation that a young professional can bring, because of course they are supporting the development of the young professional by showing how they are doing their practice, but at the same time they have to be open to receive some innovative approaches to potentially change, improve, restructure what they are doing. So that's a very interesting, I think, a very interesting element in this professional mobility scheme that we have. Of course, the host organization is not receiving, in this case, any economic support and is investing time. So they have to be aware that there is this kind of investment, and this investment should be done with the clear objective of opening the activities to other countries, other markets, thanks to a human support that will be back to that country, but in the meantime will have open this process of internationalization without really moving yourself from the place where you are based.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, I think, one thing, and of course we are working very much to make this become very clear to the host organization. As well, there should be openness to, as much as possible, not only work on individual organization, but trying to open the ecosystem. Because the more this is not just a one-to-one relationship, but is a one-to-many, they are offering the opportunity also to the local context to interact with this international element coming to the community and the country. The more this is impactful.
Thank you, Aparajita.
Yeah.
We have only 5 minutes till the end, isn't it,
sure.
Johan? Okay, 4. Now 4. Sorry
Okay,
for making a pressure on you, Aparajita.
There are two things. First, in the Netherlands, all higher education institutions who want to internationalize has to sign a national code for international students. So we have all signed that policy. And if you sign that policy, then you have to have programs for international students, orientation programs, welcoming them. So the first week of all our new students, I'm not talking about exchange students only, so all the exchange students plus the degree mobility students come in, we have a whole week of different things happening for their integration into the academy, telling them about the society and stuff like that. And the other part that you said, you talked to someone in Amsterdam, the school, I think probably which school you've spoken to, it's the students who are asking for the change. It's their students' voice. We have an initiative in the Hague at the Royal Academy. It's called the Green Office. And the Green Office students are calling for regenerative education. They are calling for sustainable education. So it's a learning and teaching thing that is happening together with the students, with the teachers. So it's not like management is deciding, oh, we need to change everything, and that's the change.
So it's a more and more open for interactive participatory
The student voice is
communication
becoming
and
more
exchange.
important.
Finally,
Yeah.
it's a questions of the power dynamics as well.
Yeah.
I think that we had also one more hand here. Is there still interest? Please, but listen to me. We have only 2 minutes, so please be short to get some comments from this side as well.
I will be short.
Thank you for your patience.
My name is Judith van der Kooi. I work for Dutch Culture. First of all, I want to say that I'm very happy to hear that you are pursuing your international strategy despite all the negative political voices we hear in the Netherlands against international students. But that's not what my question is about. I wanted to ask about something you mentioned in the beginning. You said that you ask students about what they've learned from their mobility. And I was very curious, what do they say? Do you have some examples, some concrete examples of what they learn from their international experiences?
And that would be great conclusion.
Yeah. Well, the first thing they say, we love the institution. We are happy to come back. So that's the biggest achievement, right? After 6 months when they come back and say, you are the best. But yes, they do learn because, of course, for our student going to, say, Vienna or going to, I don't know, Eastern European country or even to London, they are thrown into a very different context. So they learn that, how to work in a different context, how to work where you do not have 3 projects in 1 week, but a whole semester you're working on one project. So they learn to appreciate also probably the space that they get. And I think also what most of our students, especially for study exchange, when they go and come back, they do appreciate the quality of teachers we have and the curriculum we are providing. So, and their work changes.
Thank you so much. One sentence, Paolo, from you, and we end here,
well,
because I will not speak anymore.
No, in our case, it's very easy. They are starting their career in the arts and culture sector when they are back. So that's, if they are able to do that, it means that the mobility scheme we are offering is working. And it's not easy, as you can imagine.
So thank you so much. I will not make any conclusion because it's really impossible, not only because of Johan and time constraints, that the fact that we really open discussion about so relevant and challenging issue. Thank you so much for openly sharing your experience and your perspective, but also for having such an active participation from your side. Thank you so much. I enjoy in the conversation. Johan, over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this wonderful conversation. We are having a break, so for all the participants online, we will be starting again in 30 minutes, and the same for all of us. We will be on time, of course, because we have a meeting with our online participants. And for the on-site participants, I welcome you to, I encourage you to go and have some fresh air, to grab a cup of coffee, to continue the conversation. Thank you very much.